What's up, my dudes? We got that new MX vs. ATV. If I die, I'm a legend. I am D1 gameplay out there, right? Sorry, boys. Spency boy been sick boy for the past couple days. Sorry for the no uploads. Of course, everything and the grandmother happens when I'm out. So we got all kinds of videos on the way, dude. We got for all kinds of real-life moto news stuff coming out, but this was certainly an interesting piece of new stuff here for MX vs. ATV Legends. I'm not actually going to show the gameplay in this video just because I don't even want to run the risk of some bullshit copyright strike crap with it, right? It's a really short video. You can go look at it on any of the MX vs. ATV social media stuff. They just posted this a couple days ago. But what makes this gameplay really interesting is it's basically the first time we've really seen like solid behind the rider, third person actual gameplay of MX vs. ATV Legends. And it's a real telling piece of gameplay as well, I feel like, because you can just see it. You can just see the physics. You can just see the way the physics are probably going to be, right? The game comes out in like a month. They ain't going to change it that much more from what you see in that new gameplay, right? The gameplay we're talking about here is where they're messing around. I think they're on like a little free ride track they throw a couple little whips over some jumps, kind of like I'm doing right here. And that's about all you see, right? It's not anything crazy, but you do get to really get an actual look at those physics, and that's the point of this video right here. I wanted to dig into that a little bit and really talk about that. So the biggest thing I noticed with the physics is, number one, they are certainly cutting back a little bit of that, like, craziness that MX vs. ATV All Out had to it, that just, like, super arcadey fantasy, whip it around, like, bro, like, come on now, bro. You know what I mean? There's a certain element to the physics. If you've played MX vs. ATV All Out enough, you realize it's just not really, at least for me, it's not what I picture as a like a Reflex type style arcade dirt bike game. It's a little more like a super arcade. It's a little more like, feels almost like you've got more movement than you should have. Whoa, trees there, buddy boy. You see what I'm saying? So, like, let me show you something right here. So, let me just hit this jump right quick, ski. I mean, look how easy it was for me to do a double backflip. You know how hard it was to do a double backflip back in Reflex? It's just shit like that, right? And just kind of the way you whip in this game, it's very, very arcadey, very, very fantasy. The good thing about it is it is loose. That was the thing that a lot of people complained about back with, like, the MX vs. ATV Supercross days, was that's when they started adding all that restriction to it, where you just couldn't whip the bike over a whole lot, no matter how much you turned it, compared to, like, a Live or Reflex, right? So it went down that more restrictive vibe feel, and then All Out went fucking all out and made it to where you could do 25 backflips over one jump. You know what I'm saying? And it gets that point where I get it, an arcade dirt bike game is not a simulator, but there is still a certain element of, you got to have a little bit of immersion in it. And I feel like a lot of the physics systems with All Out just break that immersion. If I can do a triple backflip on a 60-foot jump, the immersion is totally broken, right? If I can whip the bike like this right here, the immersion is totally broken. Do you see what I'm saying? So this is more of like a super fantasy style physics system to a game. But with Legends, it does look as if and this is what I was telling them to do, it does look as if they've kind of toned that down a little bit, and they're trying to get a little bit more of the, more of that, like, that more in the realm of realistic possibility of how much a person would actually be able to whip the bike. It does look, pretty damn restrictive. I'm kind of shocked a little bit that they went that far with it, but it also does still have this really weird look, really weird similarity to MX vs. ATV All Out that I think is going to be a really big problem for the physics of Legends. I'm just keeping it 100 as I always do with you guys. It still has that very slot car look to the way the bike kind of like moves on the ground. See how this that's just not natural looking. That's not very natural looking to me. Like, All Out has a very slot car-esque kind of look to it. I think they improved on that a little bit with the updates of this game, but oh man. I mean, it's almost like Unleashed, Untamed level, slot car level type look to the physics when you're on the ground, It just doesn't have that natural, like, inertia, back wheel motion whenever you're turning the bike. There's just something weird about it, and I noticed that same weirdness to that new gameplay of MX vs. ATV Legends, right? And it doesn't really look to me like they've actually fixed upon that very much. So that's something to keep in mind, right? I'm certainly worried for Legends. I'm still worried. Like, I didn't look at that new Behind the Rider gameplay and I was like, oh yeah, this shit, oh man, Legends gonna be great. Oh, hell yeah, dude. No. That's not what I was thinking when I saw that gameplay. What I was thinking was, it looks like they basically just copy and pasted All Out's physics, but just made it a little bit more restrictive and might have added a little bit more of like a gravitational pull when you're in the air kind of vibe to it, which is good. It looks like they're trying to make it better in some of those areas, but man, I just don't know if they've done enough to it to give it enough of a Spency boy up in the fucking trees. You know how I do out here. Ah, damn, there we go. Spency boy on the level now, dude. So yeah, either way, I just want to make a quick video, kind of talk about that gameplay. Do not get your hopes up for Legends. Do not get too excited on this game, because I still think there's going to be a lot of core issues to the physics of All Out that is going to carry over to Legends. It just kind of looks like they've just restricted the physics of it. And it's like, that's a good thing, but they have to restrict it in the right kind of ways, and they have to add realistic inertia in the right kind of ways. It's like, if they're not careful, they'll fuck around and just go back and make another MX vs. ATV Supercross again. You know what I'm saying? That almost is like what the whips looked like in the new Legends gameplay on their social media stuff. It's, if you're not careful, you will fuck around and make it to where, that's the thing with Reflex. That's what made it so amazing, was it was the best of both worlds. It was the best of that arcadey kind of feel, but still keeping you in that immersion, possible realism. Obviously, there's times where you can whip the bike on Reflex and make it look unrealistic. There is. But it's nowhere near like what you can do on All Out, right? And the way you corner and the way the bike moves when you're turning on the ground, I just feel like there's a certain element of it on Reflex that just keeps you, oh, Spency boy, that just keeps you engaged. It keeps you like, okay, that's somewhat believable. That kind of seems like James Stewart could probably do that on a dirt bike, right? But like, I don't give a fuck who you are. Like, I really don't think you're going to whip a dirt bike like that right there. You know what I'm saying? It's like I don't even fucking know how to explain it anymore. It's like they just can't get it where it's realistic, but still arcadey, you know? They just can't seem to find that balance to it. I don't know. That's the only way I know how to explain it. And with the gameplay that I saw on this new Legends gameplay when they were whipping the bike over, who knows how much they were turning the thumbsticks? Who knows how they were turning the thumbsticks? I don't know. But it seems to me like Legends is going to be more so in the middle before we get the actual better MX version. Like, I feel like the next game is going to be the one that's more like what we're actually wanting, more so than Legends physics-wise, right? Like I say, I could just see those similarities to the slot car-ass looking movement on the ground. I could see that in that gameplay, that new Legends gameplay, and that's going to kill their ass. Like, in the ruts in the corners and the way the bike corners in general and all that kind of stuff, it just affects that ground gameplay so much when it's got that slot car sort of look to it and that slot car feeling to it, right? It's just such an outdated dirt bike gaming feeling, physics feeling. That's more like how the bike's physics felt back in, like I was saying, Unleashed and Untamed, when you didn't even have dual stick controls. Do you see what I'm saying? That's back when you didn't even have dual stick controls, right? So it's kind of like that weird, I don't know. They're struggling to figure out how to get that dual stick control to look natural like it did back in Reflex on the ground. You know, there's just something weird about it with All Out in it, and I see all of those same ground physics similarities with this new Legends behind the rider third-person gameplay. So all I'm saying is just fucking be careful with Legends, because it's I don't think it's just gonna blow you away. I don't think it's gonna be like, oh, this is like way more like a Reflex or whatever. I just don't think it's gonna quite achieve that. I just don't. So, either way, and I know some of this may sound a little hypocritical, because, like, all this time, I was asking for free the whips, hashtag free the fucking whips, and I mean, yeah, they did that with All Out, and I gave them credit for that, but at the same time, it's like, where do we go from here? You gotta go somewhere from here. So, and I think they just, I don't know how to explain it. There was just something magical about the physics code to Reflex. There was just something about it. And that's the only way I know how to explain it from playing all these games all this amount of time. For me personally, it's just like an MX versus ATV, Supercross or whatever. Those kind of game, like that game when you're trying to whip the bike in the air, it's just nothing like whipping the bike on Reflex. The ground physics of All Out are just nothing like the ground physics on Reflex. Certain elements of it, I just still feel like there's a big room for improvement, huge room for improvement. Like, I think the slot car feeling is a big one on the ground. If they can get rid of that sort of feeling, I think it's going to help them a lot, especially when you're going through the corners. It's not going to feel so weird. It's not going to look so weird. So anyways, it was a really short gameplay. I just wanted to kind of run through it really quick with you guys. And that's about what I could draw from it. Yeah, it certainly didn't, like, blow me away, didn't impress me. I mean, yeah, they're toning down the whip looseness from All Out, and yes, that is what I want them to do, but it has to be done the right way. Do you know what I'm saying? All this shit has to be done the right way. It's not as simple as just saying, well, you need to tighten up those whips a little bit, or, well, you need to, restrict the physics a little bit and it'll make it a little more realistic. It's like you gotta make it more realistic without losing all of your looseness. You gotta make it a little more immersive, a little more believable without losing every bit of your looseness. You know, like I say, you'll go right back to that, like MX versus ATV Supercross days where it was just so restrictive that you couldn't even really whip the bike like a James Stewart would in real life. You could only just barely toss it out to the side. And then when you get it restrictive like that, then it starts to feel repetitive, you know, because then you can't... Reflex just has that inertia element to it that... I don't even know any other way to explain it, where it just, every time you come off that jump face, it feels different. Every time you go through a corner, it feels a little bit different. The bike's bouncing a little bit different. The bike's suspension's reacting differently, you know. And I think that's a bit of a problem here with All Out, and what looks to be a bit of a problem with the Legends gameplay is it's carrying too many similarities from All Out. It don't really seem like that all new MX versus ATV game, like going from, you know, Untamed to Reflex. It's not giving me that level of differences kind of vibes, you know. It's not giving me that impression of advancement from one game to the next. I think it's going to be more similar to All Out than any of us wanted it to be, you know. And so I'm really worried about that. I'm really, really worried about that. You boys are going to have to get rid of that slot car feeling. We are not in 2005 anymore. You know? We're just not. I mean, we're just not. Reflex came out in 2009. At some point, we're going to have to figure this shit out. And I try to explain it the best I can. And I understand I'm not the guy in there actually fucking designing all these physics systems. I don't know what goes into all that, but all I can do is tell you what it feels like, tell you what it looks like, and what I feel like made Reflex so great. That's all I can do, man. That's all I can do, man.